I always felt something was wrong with my basement, but I had no idea how dark it really was. When my family moved into that old house, I was just 7 years old. I remember the excitement bubbling inside me as we pulled up to the driveway. It was a big change from our cramped apartment, a real house with a yard, a place where I could finally have my own room. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, and everything felt full of promise. I ran inside ahead of my parents, eager to explore. The living room was warm and cozy, the kitchen smelled like fresh paint, and the bedrooms were bright with sunlight streaming through the windows. But then I found the basement door. It was tucked away in the corner of the hallway, almost hidden behind a coat rack. The door itself was old and wooden, painted white but chipped and scratched. I hesitated before touching the cold metal handle. When I opened it, a rush of cold, damp air hit me like a wall. The basement was dark, the single bare bulb flickering overhead, casting long, jittery shadows on the concrete floor. The smell was the first thing that hit me, a mix of mildew, rust, and something else I couldn't place. It was heavy and thick, like the air itself was rotting. Pipes ran along the ceiling in twisted, unnatural angles, dripping water now and then. The walls were raw cement, cracked and stained with years of neglect. It felt like stepping into a different world, cold, unwelcoming, and deeply unsettling. I tried to shake off the feeling and ran back upstairs, but the basement stayed in my mind. I avoided going down there, and my parents never asked me to. They said it was just a storage space, nothing to worry about. But then the noises started. At first, it was subtle, a faint tapping, like someone knocking on the walls. I told myself it was just the house settling, or maybe the pipes. But late at night, when the rest of the house was silent, the tapping would get louder. It wasn't random, it was rhythmic, deliberate. Sometimes it sounded like scratching, like nails scraping against wood. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I crept out of bed, heart pounding, and tiptoed to the basement door. The tapping was louder than ever, echoing up the stairs. I slowly opened the door, the cold air rushing out like a breath from some hidden creature. I peered down into the darkness, but I couldn't see anything beyond the first few steps. The tapping stopped the moment I opened the door. I slammed it shut and ran back to my room, pulling the covers over my head. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Days passed, but the tapping returned every night. I tried to tell my parents, but they brushed it off. "Old houses make noises," they said. "You're just imagining things." But I knew I wasn't. Then came the whispering. It started as a faint murmur, barely audible, like a voice just out of reach. I heard it one afternoon while playing near the basement door. It was so soft I thought I was imagining it, but it grew louder, more urgent. The words were jumbled, impossible to understand, but the tone was desperate, like someone trapped, begging for help. I was frozen in place, unable to move. The whispering faded, replaced by a cold silence that pressed against my skin like a physical weight. One afternoon, my mom asked me to go downstairs and get some socks from the dryer. I didn't want to, but I didn't want to disappoint her either. I took a deep breath and flipped on the basement light. The bulb flickered weakly, casting long shadows that danced on the walls. As I walked down the stairs, the smell hit me stronger than ever, a sickly sweet stench that made my stomach churn. I tried to focus on the laundry basket, but something made me glance toward the far corner of the basement, where the drywall looked different. There was a patch, discolored, darker than the rest, almost bruised looking. I reached out to touch it, and the texture was wrong, rough and uneven, like it was hiding something behind it. Then I heard it again, the whispering, louder this time, coming from behind that wall. My heart hammered in my chest. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Suddenly, a loud bang shook the basement, like something heavy had slammed against the wall. I screamed and bolted up the stairs, nearly tripping on the last step. I told my parents everything, tears streaming down my face. For the first time, they looked worried. They said they'd check it out, but nothing ever came of it. Months went by. The house felt normal again, but I never forgot the basement. I never went down there unless I absolutely had to. Years later, after we'd moved away, I couldn't shake the memories. One night, drunk and restless, I found myself standing outside the old house. The windows were dark, the yard overgrown, but the basement door was still there, waiting. I broke the lock and crept inside, flashlight in hand. The basement was just as I remembered, cold, dark, and smelling of decay. I approached the discolored patch on the wall, heart pounding, and swung my flashlight beam over it. With a sudden rush of courage, I punched the drywall. It gave way easily. Behind it was a hidden crawlspace, a narrow tunnel just big enough for a person to squeeze through. I crawled inside, the air thick and suffocating. The flashlight flickered, and I saw bones, tiny, fragile bones scattered everywhere. I felt like I was in a nightmare. There were scraps of paper, covered in strange writing, and dozens of small skeletons, all missing their skulls. One forearm had deep bite marks. I scrambled back out, heart racing, and heard footsteps above me, slow, deliberate, and closing in. The basement light snapped off. The whispering returned, louder, surrounding me in darkness. I hid behind the dryer, barely daring to breathe. Then, a scream, raw, inhuman, chilling. I ran. I never looked back.